Hello, everyone. My name is Clancis, and welcome to the Clancis Dumaguta podcast. And today, I'm going to be talking about a topic that I've been asked several times by some African Americans, and I understand why the question was asked. I don't know what their prejudices are or the interest is on around this topic that I'm going to be talking about. Like I said, guys, I have given my email address in the YouTube channel about under the about. You'll see my email address there if you are interested in asking me questions or suggesting topics that you want me to talk about on the podcast. I highly appreciate that. I also appreciate everybody that have been sending me emails and also offering some kindness to me as well. I highly appreciate all of that. And I also thank you for everybody that has just subscribed to my YouTube channel on YouTube. I highly appreciate that, and all of you are warmly welcomed. I so love the engagement that I am having on email. You guys are just amazing. I had no idea this is how you guys have been feeling for so long. Like I said to you guys in my previous podcast, that as South Africans, we were busy minding our own business. We are right there at the tip of the continent, just going about building our lives, building the country, and going through all that we are also going through as a result. Not sure whether people are unhappy with the route that we are taking in building South Africa. As some of you would know, that South Africa just came out of apartheid about 29 years ago. On the 27th of April, we celebrated our 29th anniversary from being free from apartheid. There's a lot that South Africans are busy repairing, also correcting the imbalances of the past. All of these guys, in 29 years, we've done a lot. A lot of damage that was caused to Black South Africans over the period of 300-400 years. So some people think that by now we're supposed to be all good and well, forgetting that it took 400 years plus to get us all messed up. And now we are trying to pull ourselves together, trying to build ourselves, building our country. And so that's what we were busy doing, not thinking, which still blows my mind. I think it blows a lot of us' minds here in South Africa. Like, the spotlight is on us, guys. Our brothers and sisters who were taken from this continent are coming here with us because they fell in love with us. And we've always loved them because as far as I've known myself, or as far as I've existed, and many other Black South Africans have existed, we've always looked up to African Americans. If you come to South Africa, if you ask African Americans that are living here in South Africa, will tell you that there is so much of assimilation between us. So much. It's uncanny. The similarities are just so uncanny. Sometimes they are a little bit scary because I've actually heard some South Africans going, are they really from America or they're lying to us? That's how similar we are in so many ways. Our mentality, our behavior, our attitude, our tenacity, our resilience. I think resilience is what we have the most in common with African Americans as South Africans. And so I'm just saying this because I feel like every time when I talk about this, I feel so happy. I feel so fulfilled. It's like, when you're hungry, but you didn't know that you were hungry until you start eating. It's something like that. I know that historically, I know that a lot of people have tried to correct me on this one. Like, no, the transatlantic slave trade also came as far as South Africa. Unfortunately, we don't have that much history about that for me to firmly say Black South Africans were also taken here. But from what we understand, according to history, is that when the transatlantic slave traders came down to South Africa, they saw Black people being short, big bellies, and as far as they were concerned, they said we were lazy when in fact wanted to say we are resilient. We resisted being taken. I think in my previous podcast I did talk about the wars that took place between Black South Africans and the colonizers, and how the Zulu nation won that battle against the British. And that was still during the transatlantic slave trade, even though it was on its dying days. So I will not talk about something that I don't know, that I was never taught about at school or even passed down in our stories, because Black people tell stories. Our history is told through stories, and it never came in those stories that we were told as kids about a white man coming here, kidnapping people and taking them into the ocean. No. I think the only history that, not the only, the history that we know about white people is that they come from the ocean. Where, we don't know. I promise you, there are so many stories about how white people come from the ocean, like mermaids. And then there is, when the ocean produces this white foam thing, it's like white/brown foam. In Zulu, we call that islungu, umlungu. Basically, that's how we describe white people, as that foam that comes from the ocean, because we believe that they come from the ocean. Nobody ever told us that on the other side of the ocean, there are other lands, there are other people and other countries and continents and things like that. But anyways, I thought to let me share that little, whatever it is that I was sharing. But let me get back to what this podcast is about today. So I think the question that I've been asked comes from a Christian, an African-American Christian who believes in Christian values, and that there's only one way and one way only of worshiping God, and that is the God of the Bible. Now, she's heard stories about how Africans worship ancestors, and she wanted to know, how is this correct? She wanted to know why would we do something as primitive as that? Of course, because I'm an open-minded person, I would not just bash you without first having a conversation and leveling out the field. If you're still a little bit stubborn about what I just explained to you, then it's got nothing to do with the fact that you are a Christian. But maybe it has something to do with your logic. So fortunately, this individual that I had a conversation with, we came to a consensus. They still stood by what they believed in, and I respect that. I respect whatever religion you come from, whatever belief system you come from, or you practice. I respect it, and I will not want to impose my own onto you. But what I can do is educate you about my own cultural beliefs and customs and traditions. That's all. And I will not impose these cultural beliefs, customs, and traditions onto you, because they belong to me and my tribe. And as I said before to you guys, I'm a Zulu. Both my mom and dad are Zulus. Both my grandparents are Zulus. They fathers and mothers also Zulus, all the way backwards. I'm pure Zulu. I come from the province of KwaZulu-Natal. To be specific, I come from a township that just outside of the city of Durban, and it's called Hammersdale. That's where I was born. I was born in a hospital not too far away from Hammersdale called Marion Hill Hospital. It's just as you move towards the east of my township. That's where I come from. That's who I am. I come from a single parent household, even though I had a dad, but because of political violence that took place in the 80s, we got separated, and my mom was the only one that took care of myself and my siblings. So as a child that comes from KwaZulu-Natal, I was born into the Zulu culture, into Zulu customs and practices. And my household, in particular, is 100% on those practices. Yes, there are some members of the family that have converted into Christianity. There are other family members who have converted into other religious practices. But let me tell you something, at the end of the day, all of us, whenever we have what I usually call a traditional do, I'm not quite sure how to call a traditional do in English because it's untranslatable. In Zulu, we call the traditional do I'm talking about, we call it umsebenzi. Umsebenzi, basically, it is where we do stuff for our ancestors. I'm going to get into that in the podcast as I move, so that where it all comes down to umsebenzi, what must first have happened in order to get to that point, and other Zulu traditional practices that we practice and believe in. And so those are the things that were done in ancient Zulu culture. And the reason why I'm going to talk about the Zulus as much as you guys know that I don't like talking for other people as much as I don't like talking about other tribes, because I do not want to misrepresent their cultures and practices. The one that I'm talking about is the one that I grew up on, the one that I know, and the one that I currently practice myself. Because to this very day, I still practice my Zulu cultural beliefs, customs, and traditions. And I'm very proud of that. I'm unmoved or shaken by that position that I hold together with my family. So I want to quote something which I quoted to this, I think now I can call it a friend, because that's how civilized we were both towards each other. But I read this quote from Desmond Tutu, which says, when the missionaries, white people, came to Africa, they had the Bible, and we Africans had the land. The whites said, let us pray. That means let's close our eyes and pray. When we black people opened them, we had the Bible. And when the white man opened his eyes, he had the land. Now, I said to her, ma'am, the point of view that you are raising with me is a point of view of the people who now have the land. And we now have the Bible. And the same people who used to have the land are now using the same Bible that was given to them while their eyes were closed to bash people like me. To bash people who believe in what I believe in, whether it's a Zulu culture, a Tswana culture, a Xhosa culture, or a Basotho culture, or whatever culture that is in Africa. Because the same missionaries, this is what they said. Now, if you remember in my previous video podcast, I had said that in South African history begins in 1652 with the arrival of Jan van Riebeeck. Okay, fine. I understand that our history started way before 1652, but the one that you will learn about in school today, starts from 1652 with Jan van Riebeeck, the Dutch colonizer that settled here in South Africa, and as a result, we are where we are today. So, of course, by the time these people came to South Africa, Christianity was already a thing where they came from as far back as the Roman Empire. I think that's where it all started. Into then the 17th century or 16th century or whatever the case was at the time. And so when they came, colonized South Africa, then around the mid 1800s, this is when the missionaries followed. Because the missionaries, when they heard that there was a discovery of lands in the African continent, they wanted to come also to instill or to install Christianity. So when they came to South Africa, of course they met resistance, because the people of South Africa, be the Khoisan, the Khoisan, the San, as well as the tribes that came from the Great Lakes, including the Zulus, they had their own cultural belief systems, traditions, and customs. Why do I have a feeling that customs and tradition means the same thing? But anyways, you get what I mean. They were already practicing those, and when the missionaries came to South Africa in the 1800s, they called our traditions, cultural beliefs, and systems as barbaric. Not only did they say they were barbaric, but they also said it was demonic. They said our cultural beliefs, our customs and traditions were demonic. Everything about our cultural beliefs, our customs and traditions were demonic. And that is when they started instilling the Bible into the communities or societies of South African nations. Of course, there was resistance. And wherever there was resistance, remember, in 1800s or the 1800s, the Dutch colonizers, together with the British colonizers, were well within the society of South Africa. They were now in control of the country. And so, as you know, when they were in control, they had the gun, they had the whip, they had the gallows, they had probably even guillotines to subdue anybody that was resisting Christianity. So much of love and so much of goodness in that, right? But anyways, we are not there. So they instilled fear into Black people's lives, that if you are not going to stop believing in your culture, your traditions, and cultural values, then you deserve to die. You deserve to be maimed. You deserve to be isolated. You deserve whatever it is that they did to any Black person that resisted Christianity. Well, one thing again about the installation of Christianity, when they got to KZN, which is KwaZulu-Natal, the Zulu people, and today it's still evident. In the Zulu nation, Christianity is there. If you ask any Zulu person, are you a Christian? They'll tell you yes. But come Sunday, see the number of people that are going to church versus those that aren't. I can tell you, those that are going to church are a drop in the ocean. Those that aren't going to church, they're sitting at home playing loud music, cleaning their homes while listening to Luther Vandross. But come Christmas or Easter, you will see the numbers increase. The celebration of Christmas in the Zulu nation is prevalent. Every Zulu person I know celebrates Christmas. Even though some may not claim to be Christians, but they celebrate Christmas. And I'll tell you why. This is a generational fear that was instilled from one generation to another, that a household, I'm not quite sure, back in the day, when the colonizers, the missionaries, whether they would visit each home during Christmas and Easter to see who's celebrating and who's not. And so this was carried on throughout the centuries and instilled in one generation to the next, that Christmas is part of the culture of the household. So we all, even including my household is a culturalist or traditionalist household. But come 25th of December, every year, we celebrate Christmas, myself included. Come Easter, we celebrate Easter, and so on and so forth. This is something, like I said, I can choose not to celebrate it, but because it's something that I've always known, that is why I practice it. And it also makes sense why many other Zulu households celebrate Christmas. And when I say many, I'm talking almost 100% celebrate Christmas. And I'm saying this to say that the Zulu nation resisted Christianity. But because they wanted peace in their lives, they decided that they are going to to practice those that were the practices that were more visible, like these sort of events like Christmas and Easter. But during the week, they did not go to church or on Sundays. If they did go to church, it probably was the mother and the father and the kids, and somebody else would just stay home doing whatever it is that they needed to do. But of course, the colonizer as well had workers on their farms, and so they would not allow their workers to go to church on Sunday. So the point that I'm trying to make here is that to this very day, Zulu people still practice Zulu cultural beliefs together with customs and traditions to this very day. However, some have decided that they are going to strike a balance between the two. They will practice Christianity and they'll also practice Zulu culture as well as traditions, but they've merged them. So it's very interesting where you see there's a merge of the two today. I remember my aunt, this is my father's sister, used to say to me, we don't know if the white man is correct about God, but we know that our culture and cultural systems and beliefs that the worship of ancestry is true. And I'm still coming to that. It is true. And it's important that we exercise or we practice that. Now, the reason why we also become Christians, basically they were saying you become a chameleon. On Sundays, you are a Christian. During the course of the week, you are a Zulu traditionalist. Now, how did this whole ancestral worship begin? Oh, what is ancestral worship? The first thing that I want to tell you is that death in the Zulu culture is very, very important. I'm not saying death itself is important, but once death has taken place, that entire process is extremely, extremely important. Zulu people believe that you live twice. You live in the physical, like right now. The moment I die, then I will live in that life, that afterlife. And we believe that once you cross over into that afterlife, you are now considered as a guardian angel. Now, I know this will sound familiar to many other people because in the white culture, they also believe that when you die, you become an angel or a guardian angel and you fly away into heaven. Us, we believe that you become a guardian angel, that we, the living, can send to God on our behalf to request whatever it is that we request. We believe that we can't talk to God directly because God is almighty. And something that is almighty, we do not have the right to directly talk to such high power. We have to have messengers that will carry our message to God. Hence, the worship of ancestry. It's not necessarily worship of ancestry. It's more like communicating with the ancestors to say, hey, put in a word for me to God regarding, if I'm going through a curse, maybe I'm going through a bad time, or I'm going through something that is not making me well. Maybe it's health itself. I can go to my ancestors and send them a message to God and say, hey, heal me here, or show me the way here, or this and that. But if you look at it in the Christian point of view as well, I think somewhere in the Bible, Jesus speaks about he is the way to God, or something like that. I am the way to God. So meaning that even Christians themselves have to pray to Jesus for Jesus to carry their message to God, type of thing. I don't know if I'm making any sense. So we believe that the process of death is extremely important. That is why even a person that was bad, horrible human being dies, we don't speak ill of them. I disagree totally with that one, but when it does happen, I have to make sure that I respect them, respect their name. And then when we bury them, we ask them to become good ancestors. So now, how does all this take place? The first thing, before you become an ancestor, of course, as a human being who's alive, would have to die. And when you die, according to the Zulu culture, you need to die at home. You must not die outside of home, on the road, on the streets, anywhere. You must die at home. But what does that tell you? It tells you that the culture, when it speaks about dying at home, it's that back in the day, people used to die at home, either of old age or sickness. But because we live in modern day, and in the modern days, we've got vehicles, we've got hospitals, we've got roads, we've got our own homes, and probably even live outside of our provinces, and anything can happen there. So there's no way that today I would die at home because I don't know when the day I'll die. Nobody knows when they are going to die. But suppose you don't die at home. Let's say you were on the road and then there was a car accident. Let's say you were coming to Johannesburg and somewhere around Mondros, which is halfway Durban, halfway Johannesburg, you get involved in a car accident and then you die. Now, because you did not die at home, what is your family ought to do now? Your family have to take an elder of the house, drive all the way to the spot where you died. What are they going to do there? They are going to collect your spirit and take it back home. Now, we don't get there to the spot, just come and collect your spirit. There is a tree branch that we carry with us. It's called Ihlahla. We take that tree branch with us. We get to the spot where you died. And then, of course, your elders, accompanied by maybe your siblings. And then the elder will speak to your spirit or your soul and say, so and so, we are here to take you home. With me, I have your brother so and so, I have your sister so and so, I even have your mother if your mother is still alive, and we are here to take you back home. And so you, as the spirit, will climb on top of this branch. We carry the branch with us into the vehicle that we came with. There's your own chair that is already provided for in the vehicle. You can't sit on anybody's lap or on the suitcase or any. You sit on your own chair. And as we drive with this tree branch with you, we believe you are on that branch, we tell you every single thing that we see along the way as we are going home. We'll tell you now we are here, and this is what way you used to stop when you were traveling to Johannesburg. This is the cold drink you used to drink, or this is the food you used to order. And as we go, and as we get into your village or township or suburb that you live, we'll tell you, oh, this is the store you used to come to buy bread at. And you just talk about maybe you're reminiscent about a memory that you had with this deceased. You laugh about it until you get home. Once you get home, you now tell the person that we have now arrived home. We are opening the gate. We are opening the door. And then usually in many Zulu households, you will find that there's a main house, and at the back of the house, there will be either a roundaval. If it is not a roundaval, it's another house. That house is usually reserved for our ancestors. We call it umsamu. That's what we call it. And we take that tree branch to umsamu and put it on top of the roof of umsamu. And then we tell you, now you are home. You can now rest in peace. You will rest in peace at home, not in your grave, because you are now what? An ancestor. So if you died at the hospital, we go to the hospital bed you died on, and we take you from there back home. So wherever you died, that's where we go. we go and collect you and we take you home. The reason why we also do that is so that if we don't come and collect you, you do not become a nuisance to other people, cause accidents, killing innocent people because you are angry that you are not picked up or collected from the spot you died at. And secondly, you don't become a what you call this, a lost soul. You want to go home. Now, when you're dead, we believe that you don't know your way home. You have to be collected from where you died back home. So that is the Zulu culture. Now, once we are home, you are now an ancestor. Of course, the night before your body is buried, it comes home at 6 p.m. It spends the night at home. People are singing. If they are Christian in that household, they're singing Christian songs the whole night. If they are traditionalists like ours, we would have what you call a traditional healer or a sangoma. Basically, there'll be drum beats the whole night. All the neighbors, everybody knows that's a funeral that's happening there. They're not going to come and complain. It's like African drum beats throughout. There's people singing and dancing and basically the whole night. That's our night visual. It's quite noisy if you are a traditionalist. In the morning, then of course your body is taken, and then if you are a Christian in that family, a pastor or a priest will come, have a memorial service where the Bible is open, Christian songs are sung, and then you are put in a hearse and then driven to the cemetery where you will be buried. But before burial as well, there'll be another church service that will probably take another 2 hours before you are put in the ground and then buried. Now, in our culture, in the Zulu culture, if you go to KwaZulu-Natal, especially in the rural areas, you would see that somebody's house at the back, or in fact, usually in the front, there are grave sites. That's where some of my people do. They will bury in the yard. Yes, it's allowed in KwaZulu, especially in the traditional lands like the northern KZN, northern KwaZulu-Natal. You will see those sort of grave sites in the yard. So as Zulu people, a casket or a coffin, that's not our thing. That stuff came with the white man. With us, you are put in a knitted mat. We call it uqansi. A knitted mat, that's where your body is laid. We'll put a blanket over you. And then when it's time to bury you, your grave is going to be dug like this. And then a little shelf. So you go down and then they'll put you in a little shelf and then they'll put soil on top. 6 feet as well. And that's your grave. But your spirit or your soul is at home because you are now an ancestor. You are a guardian angel. You are the person whenever the house needs something or maybe something is going on that is making us uncomfortable. We talk to you. There's a scent that we burn. We call it in Zulu, impepho. I wish I had these things to show you. We call it impepho. It's a scent, and we believe that scent connects you with us. And then you take our message to God. So if I'm looking for a job, or maybe I can't find a job, or something is going on and I don't understand what's going on, I burn impepho. Even just yesterday, I burnt impepho. That's sent to speak to my ancestors because something happened that I did not understand, and I wanted a sign as to what on earth is that. About 2 weeks ago, I was back home in KwaZulu-Natal because my uncle had a dream. That's another thing when we have a traditional do. One of us will have a dream. And when you have a dream, he had a dream about 3 of his elders. I think it was his mom and somebody in the elders that passed on decades ago. They said that they were cold. Now, he did not understand what that meant. So usually when we have a dream and we can't interpret the dream and we don't know what the dream is about, we go to a traditional practitioner, which is called a sangoma. White men, when they came to South Africa, they called that traditional practitioner a witch doctor. Now, you and I know what a witch is. There's nothing positive connotated to a witch. So remember I said they demonized our cultural beliefs and customs. So that is why they will call a sangoma. To us, that is our doctor. That is our seer. That is our medium. Those are the people we go to when we want to get clarity about things that we don't understand. So my uncle went to one of the sangomas, and the sangoma said, "Oh, all that your those ancestors of yours want is for you to slaughter 3 cows. Take the cow's, what do you call this? The skin. I think it's called something else in English. The skin, and all you do is cover a portion of the house, basically where the ancestors live. So you just cover basically the roof, and then they're fine. They'll be warm." So that's exactly what happened I think it was 3 weeks ago. My uncle had a dream, and then we went home, bought cattle, slaughtered them, and had a whole traditional do that we always have. So whenever there's a traditional do, whether it's a cow, a goat, or chicken, those are slaughtered at 6 p.m. on a Friday. And then the meat is hung in umsamu. Remember umsamu? It's that roundavel that is at the back of the house, or another house at the back of the house. Sometimes is within the house. There's a specific room that is for the ancestral practice. So the meat will be hung the whole night in that particular room. We believe that that's when the ancestors are able to lick and do all what that needs to be done. A candle is burned. Impepo, that sense that I talked about, is burnt, and we talk to the ancestors and say, "Here is your blankets." That's what my uncle had to tell the ancestors they dream about. Here's your blankets, and hope you'll be warm. And then we brew an African beer. In Zulu, we call it umqombothi. And we leave that, some pieces of meat that we would have barbecued outside, and we put it inside, and some sweets, brandy, alcohol. And then we leave that room. The whole night's just going to be there. The following day in the morning, people from wherever they come from, sometimes even neighbors, they come to help in cooking. Now, in a traditional do, you don't cook the food with spices and seasonings and things like that. No, the meat is boiled, and then we also cook what you call in Zulu ujek, like that is steamed bread, and that's how people come around 1 o'clock to come and eat together with the family. And as the more people come, that means the more the ancestors are happy. If less people come, something went wrong there. Something went wrong. You have to go back to the seer to find out, hey, I had a traditional do, people didn't come. What happened? Sometimes it is believed that your ancestors have turned their back on you. Now, in Zulu, I'm not allowed to turn my back on anybody. When I'm sitting with you, and then I'm sitting in a position where my back is going to be facing you, I'll have to find a way to be as uncomfortable as I can to ensure that my back is not faced on you. Otherwise, I am bringing about bad luck to you if my back is turned on you. So now, can you imagine if your ancestors have their backs turned on you? Imagine the bad luck you are going to be experiencing. That's what we believe in. So they'll say, "Oh, meaning the ancestor has turned their back on you." Maybe they are angry about something that you did they did not approve of. So you have to now look at your life. What is it that I've done? What decisions have I taken that has gotten my ancestors turning their back on me? And you'll find that that's the only thing that you needed to do, is to change that decision that you made in order for them to come back and say, "Okay, we can take your message to God." So there are a lot of things that many people are doing today, and they wonder, "But I pray so hard, but nothing is happening." I have known a family that was staunch Christians. They prayed every day for a better life, and they never got it. They all gone to their graves. Then you ask yourself, is it because of the decisions that they've taken to turn their back on their ancestors, and their ancestors as a result were like, we ain't taking no message to God for you? So one don't know if that's the case, because of course we don't see what's going on the other side of life. We don't see God. We know them, and when they left, they knew us as well. So that is the whole point of ancestral belief in the Zulu culture. We believe that we directly speak to our ancestors to take our message to God. We don't talk to God directly. Same goes with in our lives as living beings. Me, as me, I can't go to my elder directly to speak to them. Even if I do go directly to them, I'm not allowed to look them in the eye when I'm talking to them. I need to look on the floor, on the ground, as I talk to them, unless they permit me to look them in the eye. And even if I do look them in the eye, I must not lock eyes with them, because that's a sign of disrespect. So usually when an elder say, no, you can look at me, I usually look here. It gives an impression that I am looking at them, but I'm only looking at the nose, and they are happy with that. Sometimes another one will say, look at me, and then when you look at like, they give you a clap. Why are you looking me in the eye like that? So they can test you sometimes. So the point that I'm trying to drive here is that we take our elders at a very high esteem, and how we treat them as well. It's not to also say you are my peer, you are my elder. Soon you are going to become my ancestor. So I don't want to make you angry while you're still alive. Can you imagine if I make you angry while you're alive, what you're going to do to me when you're an ancestor? So no, I don't want you to become a bad ancestor. I want you to become a good ancestor. That is why peace and harmony amongst the Zulu family is something that is highly promoted. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention, there are rules where there is death in the Zulu household. Those rules are no arguing, no noise, no fighting, no turning on television, no turning on radio, nothing that is going to disturb the peace. Those things are very important that you do not do. If you happen to have a disagreement with somebody while the deceased is not buried yet, we say that whatever it is that you, let's say you're making a noise, like you are fighting with your one of your relatives, we say that stop it, otherwise uzodlulela, meaning whatever it is that you violated, you become it forever. You will always be fighting people for no reason. Why? Because you fought somebody while there was a death in the family. So that is one of the rules. So many people, in other words, what that means that you will go crazy. You'll go crazy, start fighting people for no reason. If you, let's say, you made a noise, you opened you turned on the television, you will always turn the television even when you're not supposed to turn on the television. Even in the middle of the night where everybody's asleep, even yourself, you would wonder why I'm turning on the television. This is going to happen to you for the rest of your life. So many of us believe that these rules ought to be followed. The other thing that we also do during death, this one is going to discuss you a little bit. The first one, before I discussed you, the boys or men in the family have to cut off their hair bald. The moment they hear there's a death in the family, you go cut off your hair. Women, they cover their heads with a doek or something, or cut your hair off into bald head. So as a Zulu person, it is pointless to have a hairstyle if you're a guy, because sooner or later when there's a death, you will have to cut that off. If you're not going to cut the hair off, uzodlulela, meaning you will, okay? Now, the night after the burial, the entire household, in order to hide everybody from death, you see the stomach of the cow, we call it umswani. We all have to go take a bath with the cow's stomach. Yeah, I know. It's disgusting. Even myself, when I put it on, I scream. But I'm not supposed to scream, but I do with disgust. Practically speaking, or traditionally speaking, you're supposed to have this umswane thing for 7 days. But because we live in a modern day, we only do it for the night. That means we hope that death doesn't see any of us. It leaves at night, and then the following day we're all safe and secured from death. And that's when we bath the cow stomach off, whether it's a cow stomach or the goat stomach. Now, let me talk about the animals. You see, a goat, again, I'm just speaking for the Zulus. I'm not going to speak for any other culture that I don't know. You see, the goat and the cow, we believe that they are directly linked with our ancestors, especially the goat. Especially the goat. A Zulu person will not eat goat meat for no reason. So let's say I come to your house and for dinner you are having goat meat, and you tell me, oh, here's some goat meat. As a Zulu person, I would have to decline respectfully. Why? Because you just slaughtered the goat for no reason. You were slaughtering it for pleasure. For us, a goat is directly linked with our ancestors. So if you did not have any traditional do of any sort and you're giving me goat meat, I'm not going to eat it. I'm going to respectfully decline it because of that very reason. Cow meat, I can eat it because it's not necessarily linked with our ancestors, but our elders of the family, especially a male person that dies, usually their coffin is covered with the cow's skin. Sometimes, whether it's a male or a female elder, the coffin will be covered with cow skin and also goat skin. Sometimes the cow skin, we put it on top of the roof to dry up. I don't know what we do after that. Some, I think they turn it into a bed or a mat or something of that nature. So those are the two important animals in our ancestral worship. Now, I wanted to also talk about other cultural practices that we have, just so you understand that how important cultural beliefs and customs are to us. When a child is born, the child will be introduced to the ancestors. There is a ceremony that we call imbeleko. Imbeleko, it is where we will slaughter a goat. While we're slaughtering the goat, we introduce the baby. We name the baby to the ancestors. And once that ceremony is done, then we take the baby and we introduce it to the elders. These are elders that are still alive. Sometimes the elders will have a name of their own for the child. You see me, I've got 3 names. I've got a name that I was named by my elders. That name is Ntutuko. And then I was named by my parents, and that is Clantus, the one that I'm using. And then the third name, I was named by my grandparents. No, actually, I'm incorrect. Sorry. The third name, the Clantus one, I was named by my grandparents. Then the middle name, which is Ntlantla, meaning lucky, I was named by my parents. So in my imbeleko, that ceremony, 3 generations named me. Each one of them gave me a name. And all 3 names are linked with each ancestry. Ancestor from my father's side, ancestry from my mother's side, ancestry from my elders as well. So all my ancestors, when I burn impepo, that instant I told you guys about, I come and I mention my three names. I come before you as Nhlanhla Tugo Clances. Already my ancestors know who I am once I mention those names. So that is one of the things that we do as a tradition. When a child is born, sometimes a child would be born during a rainy day. That child will be called as per the activity of the day. That child will be called Nomvula, for example, meaning rain. Of course, that will also be announced to the ancestors that this child was born under these circumstances. This is the activity that was taking place on this particular day, and therefore, this is the name of the child. So once the child begins to grow and it gets to the age of puberty, this is when another ceremony is going to be performed, and that ceremony is called umemulo. Now, this ceremony will either make you angry, or you're going to think, "Oh, wow, that's a beautiful tradition." So basically, when the child, particularly a girl child, reaches the age of puberty, umemulo is performed. Basically, in order for this traditional practice to take place, the girl must be a virgin. Must be a virgin. Now, you probably will want to know, how would they know that the child is a virgin? So the child will be removed from the community they live in. They are taken somewhere. As a boy, I don't know where that is. So they are taken to wherever they are taken to. And where they are taken to, there is going to be what is called a virginity testing, or a virginity test. I know this topic makes a lot of people very, very angry, especially the white people. They feel this is a violation of a child, etc., and so on. I myself, I'm not quite sure how I feel about it, but because it's our culture and tradition, I guess I don't have much of a say. However, when these girls get where they get tested, that is how then a child, they're going to know that she's still a virgin. Now, once these girls have been tested and it's proven that they are virgins, they then come back home, and then there will be this ceremony called umemulo. That is how now the boys of the area or of that community will know that that house, that girl is still a virgin. So usually people will celebrate that girl, that, oh, she's taking care of herself, she did not run after boys, blah, 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 blah. Unfortunately, some boys do have very bad intentions on that girl. Some boys will not like the fact that she's a virgin, or maybe because she thinks she's better than all the other girls, and they try to deflower her. Basically, they will lure her into a relationship, which is actually incorrect, because according to the Zulu culture, once the girl has been tested that she's a virgin and umemulo, that ceremony has taken place, she is taken to what you called the reed dance, or umhlanga. Umhlanga, it is where they go before the Zulu king. All the virgins, the Zulu virgins, they carry reeds and they take it to umhlanga, which is the king, where he sits with his chiefs and his wives, and watch these Zulu virgins carrying these long reeds to gift him with. And in the same ceremony, umhlanga, the king can choose a girl for his wife. If he took a liking to a particular girl, he would take her as his wife. Now, these girls, as far as I understand, when they are taken away from the village or township or wherever to wherever where they get tested, they are basically taught some things. And one of the things that they are taught is that when you go to umhlanga, there's a chance that you might not come back. You will remain in the palace and become the king's wife. So basically, you are just an ordinary girl, you might come back a queen of the Zulus. So, because these girls usually are between the ages of 14, the youngest, to about 18, the oldest. Well, these days they go as far as 50 years old. A 50-year-old virgin. Yes, I've seen them. Because of today's days, where you have constitutional rights, we have laws, statutory rape laws, the king can no longer choose a girl that is a minor. So in these days, mostly the Zulu king no longer chooses a wife from Umhlanga, the reed dance. I don't know how he finds his wives these days, but that's how the Zulu king used to find his wife. When the virgins come every year at a particular, I think around this time or maybe next month, I can't remember which month, the virgins are going to go to the king. And if it happens, I'm going to let you know. Maybe I might even include a clip to show you that. Or maybe you can just Google or go on YouTube and check Reed Dance. REED Dance. You will see those girls. Content warning. Those that might be a little offended. Those girls, they usually don't wear anything on top. Their figures are out. So I'm not quite sure how YouTube treat that sort of content. But if YouTube is restricting that content, then I think you can find it on Google. Then you will see those virgins going to the king. Yeah, so basically that is Umemulo. So there are other ceremonies that we hold for us, even as a grown-up, like when I want to okay, no, before I get to this one. So now this girl comes back from the reed dance or umhlanga, comes back to the community. This girl now is allowed to fancy a boy. And if there's a boy that she fancies in the community, she can then write the boy a letter in a form of beads. Now the beads come in different colors, and each color has a different message. So if a girl likes this boy, she would make him a bead necklace, a bracelet or necklace, basically telling him that she fancies him. Sometimes the boy, when he likes a girl and that girl just returned, he would also do the same thing. He would write her a love letter in a form of beads. If they like each other, then the boy is then obligated to write a letter to the girl's uncles, basically to inform the uncles that he is coming with the intentions of paying ilobolo. Some of y'all have been accustomed to think it's called lobola. That's actually ilobolo. One is a verb and the other one is a noun. So this is when he makes his intentions of coming to ask for her hand in marriage, basically. But we call that ilobolo or lobola. Somebody asked me in the comment section to make a video about the whole process of lobola, which I am going to do that because it's a process. There are other stuff that take place in between before the entire lobola process is completed. And I've seen many other people, when they go to ilobolo or lobola, they just cut through. There are so many other things that take place in between that's never been done. And I'll be like, okay, never mind. I understand that the culture itself is losing momentum. It's now turned into a business. Yep. These days, some families, when they have a baby girl, they celebrate. In the past, when a family has a baby girl, there were no celebrations because the birth of a girl in a Zulu culture, especially, that means the child, that girl, is going to kill the surname, because once she takes her husband, that surname dies. But a boy child, when he's born, the surname continues to live. I don't know if that makes sense. But these days they celebrate if a girl child is born, because that means they can charge whoever wants to come and marry her a lot of money. And these days, they charge unacceptable amounts of money. So if you're an African American and you fall in love with a Zulu girl, whether you're an African American or white person and you want to marry a Zulu girl, you are going to pay ilobola. Sorry. And I make a mean lobola negotiator. I can negotiate your lobola perfectly. I've done it several times. I'm a beast. So if the girl does not have a boy that maybe she fancies, then she is open to find suitors. So that means she will basically be moving around looking for suitors. Some boys will want to take her out on dates, and if she finds a boy that she likes and the boy likes her, then the courting system begins. So basically, courting begins before the boy writes a letter to the uncles. So the courting, this is where they get to know each other. And of course, the boy is not allowed to touch the girl. I mean, in that way, because he knows that she's a virgin. Like I said, some boys have bad intentions. Their intentions is just to deflower her and dump her. So culturally, you are not supposed to touch her until your wedding night, until the lobolas have been paid. Okay, I think I'm tired of talking. I think I'll leave this podcast right here. Again, if you were listening and you're thinking, hey, you got this wrong, kindly leave a comment in my comment section. Enlighten me where I went wrong, correct me where I went wrong, and but what I have said is what my family does. My family. So if you know something that is different or maybe similar, but I said it incorrectly, maybe that's how your family does it as well. Because let's also not lie to ourselves. Over the years, our cultural beliefs and customs have been diluted because of the arrival of Christianity and other religions. So some things have been lost probably in your family, and we still carry it in my family, or my family has lost some few cultural practices or gained new ones or evolved new ones. Then that is what I was talking about. So I don't think that one is supposed to even be a debate. Yeah. We practice our traditions in a different way. I understand that maybe Xhosas, the Swatis and the Ndebeles may say, hey, what about us? I know that the Zulu people form under the Nguni group. The Nguni group is the Zulus, the Xhosas, the Ndebeles, and the Swatis. Chances are we do the same cultural beliefs and customs and traditions. There's a high chance of that because we are one people, but divided into four. And so I did not deliberately set you aside. I'm just speaking on the tribe that I am and that I know and that I experience. So if you feel like or you want to contribute to this, I don't have an issue with that. As a matter of fact, I will encourage you to add whatever you want to add. So having said all of that, when the colonizer came to South Africa, that is exactly what they said our culture was. Demonic. What we are doing is demonic. And this individual that I had this conversation with, she also said that our African cultural beliefs are demonic. And I reminded her where she comes from because she's an African American. And I said to her, prior to the transatlantic slave traders came to where they took your ancestors, what do you think your ancestors were worshiping? Because I can tell you one thing, they did not have the Bible in their hands. That's for sure. So now, just to close this podcast, the last question she asked me was, do you believe in God? And the answer is very simple. Yes, I do believe that there is God, or there is a God. I do believe there's a higher power. In Zulu, we call that higher power either uNkulunkulu or umvelinqangi. Those are the two words that would describe that higher power. So we do believe there's a higher power. That is why we believe that our ancestors, our messengers to umvelinqangi or to uNkulunkulu. So the answer is yes. We believe there is a God. And just a side note, heaven in Zulu, we call it Izulu. Heavy rain, we call it Izulu. Sometimes we call it Imvula, but Imvula, it's more like drizzle. That's Imvula. But like thunder, storms, and all that, we call it Izulu. That means the heavens opened. So that's just a side note to show you that we believe heavily in the existence of God. It's just that we don't believe that we have the right to directly talk to him. Instead, by respecting God, we speak to our ancestors to take our messages to God. That's it. I think this is it, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked this podcast video, give it a like. If you didn't like it, still give it a like. As I mentioned some podcast ago, that if you like a video on YouTube, you are triggering the algorithm to push that video to more people. As you guys know, I would like to grow my channel on YouTube and start getting paid for all of this work that I do by YouTube. So do subscribe to my channel, and don't forget to click the bell notification after subscribing, and leave me a comment down below, and let me know, what did you think of this podcast? Do you think our cultural or our culture traditions are demonic? If you said they were demonic, then I would say to you, well done in advancing and promoting the message of the colonizer, the anti-Black movement that is seemingly just rising and rising. It's just unfortunate. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.